The Atlanta Braves have a doubleheader today against the New York Mets. Win and you're in, but I think they can sweep and send New York home, and I'll tell you how. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today Podcast, your home for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. He's Christian Rauh. Follow him on Twitter at Christian S. Rauh, R-A-U-H. You can find all of our written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack. And Christian, I wanted to record last night, right? All the other Braves podcasts recorded last night, but I was trying to wait to find out who is the Met starter for Game 1. And we finally have it. So you are playing a doubleheader today. Atlanta Braves take on the New York Mets. Game 1 is right after 1 o'clock. Game 2 is 40 minutes after Game 1. And because everything broke the wrong way on Sunday, Atlanta lost to the Royals, the Mets won over the Brewers, and the Diamondbacks won, you do have to play both games today. But I think it's possible that you can get a sweep in this game, simply because of how the pitching lines up for everybody. So Atlanta announced last night Spencer Schwellenbach is the starter for Game 1. I want to talk about him before we even get to who New York's throwing in Game 1, and then we'll get into Game 2 and how you can send these guys home and not let them win. Because Atlanta sweep means Arizona is in. A Braves sweep, a Mets sweep means you go home. A series split, the Braves and Mets are both in. And to kind of clarify how it's going to work here, if Atlanta is in the postseason, they are the 5 seed. There is no scenario where Atlanta can be the 6. So you are the 5 seed. You will go to San Diego. The only way the Mets can move to the 5 seed is to sweep Atlanta. And if the Mets only win 1, they are the 6 seed. They go back to Milwaukee. But Atlanta's got Spencer Schwellenbach. Before we break down what he's done against the Mets and all of that, how do you feel about the decision to throw Morton yesterday and Schwellenbach today versus the other way around?
Yeah, in hindsight, it looks like it might not have been the right decision. Having Schwellenbach maybe pitch yesterday could have sealed the deal for Atlanta, and there'd be a lot less stress today heading into this doubleheader. But Morton has shown that he can do what was needed to be done. And if you look big picture, Lindsay, there's a potential that you might move Morton and Grant Holmes. You're going to have them in the bullpen. Having them with one extra day of rest, not needing them in the doubleheader, might make them available in the wild card series. If the Braves make it, you aren't planning on using Spencer Schwellenbach in the wild card as of right now. If you're going to pitch him in the doubleheader, if you have Sale free. In hindsight, it looks like overall it might have been the wrong decision, but you might have guys like Morton and Holmes available in Game 2 and Game 3 of the wild card if necessary, coming out of the bullpen.
See, I think the flip side for me is Morton gave up 4 earned runs. Like that shouldn't be insurmountable. And the frustrating thing is for this Braves team, that's been insurmountable this year. I sent you a message last night. I know I wanted to save. When Braves opponents score more than 3 runs this year, the Braves are 11-57. If they have to face a 4-run deficit, they are 11-57. And that is, as much as, yes, getting into a 3-0 hole early hurt Atlanta, that it shouldn't be that way. That should not be an issue. And so I'd argue Morton wasn't great. I'd argue he wasn't bad enough for you to lose the game. You going, I think it was 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position, which made you 1 for 19 in the series. That was the real problem, not Morton. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Not what I want to talk about. Schwellenbach starting today, I feel is the right way to handle this. We know Chris Sale's in reserve. The goal here, if you win with Schwellenbach, you don't have to use Sale for Game 2 because Sale is on hook for an elimination game. And so if you don't have to use Sale, that means your wild card rotation for San Diego is Chris Sale, Max Fried, Ronaldo Lopez for 1 through 3.
Love it.
I will go to war with those 3 guys 7 days a week and Sunday after church. That is,
with only a flashlight and a toothbrush. I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah. And then if you advance, your next start would be, I believe, Friday. And then you have, it would be against LA. And you would have, I believe, Schwellenbach could come back on regular rest for that, or you
Mhm.
could throw Morton. So you have options. Heck, you could throw Grant Holmes. I don't really care. But the point is, you still have options on all of this, and you're still good to go. So Schwellenbach against the Mets has been really good. He's made 2 starts against them, and uh, he's been nothing short of spectacular, right? The first outing was July 27th, 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts. And then he faced them again last week in game 1 of that series that you won in Atlanta. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run came in that 7th inning on a solo homer by Mark Vientos. That was the first run that uh, the Mets have scored on Schwellenbach in 14 innings. He walked 1 and struck out 4 because he was prioritizing soft contact, getting out of innings early. He only threw 87 pitches in 7 innings because he was getting a lot of really early outs. I have it in the takeaways on Braves today. I don't have it right in front of me right this second, but I want to say he had, I think it was like 9 batters that the at bats were done in 3 pitches, whether it was a strikeout, a ground out, fly out, whatever it was. He was just mowing them down. They have not shown the ability to handle Spencer Schwellenbach. And what I feel like he's not going to have the usual issue of facing a team in back-to-back starts that you see so often in MLB because one, he throws 6 different pitches and he can change up what he does. And then two, the Mets have been on the road since then. They have not had the ability to use the advanced track check hitting machine that has the screen that mimics the pitcher's delivery and everything where they could practice off of Spencer Schwellenbach. That is a thing that a lot of fans don't really know a ton about. ESPN wrote a big article about them a couple months ago, and I've seen them at some major league ballparks. But a lot of teams now are using these machines because they can exactly replicate all of a pitcher's pitches. You plug in the metrics, the spin rates, and everything. And the screen, the projector screen on the front of it, gives you the exact delivery, all of the stuff that the pitcher does, so you can practice against that pitcher. New York has not been home since this and able to do that since they faced him last. So I'm not as worried about throwing him on back to back outings for those 2 reasons. Am I ridiculous for being comfortable with this?
No, I have all the confidence in the world in Spencer Schwellenbach as well. And since the Mets played that one game against the Braves, and then they went off to Milwaukee, and then now they're heading back, they've been one of the worst offensive teams in baseball. If you go and check their last 7 days, they've only played 4 games because of the doubleheader happening today. But they have only a 530 OPS. That's good enough for third worst in the entire league. Worst in the National League, actually. No, excuse me. The Reds are the worst. So the third worst in all of baseball. And they have 25 hits over those 4 games. Half of those all came yesterday. So maybe you see a little bit of a plus or a little bit of motivation moving forward because of what happened in yesterday's game. But
Mhm.
overall, I'm not impressed. And I think that their offense is slumping a little bit, and I think that's going to help out Schwellenbach as well. I think we're going to see more efficiency from Schwellenbach. Again, I think when we talked about that series preview, Lindsay, when we broke that down on an episode last week, we said we wanted to have Swellenbach to have an early leash if need be, unless he's shoving. Well, he shoved and he gave some good innings, and I would not be surprised if we see that again today in game 1 of the doubleheader. And that'll be the perfect scenario because that means you can keep Chris Sale for tomorrow, game 1 in San Diego.
Yeah. Looking at that Milwaukee series, taking out the game against the Braves, they had 21 hits in the 3 games, scored 9 runs, but like you said, over half of that was yesterday. They won 5-0 on Sunday, 12 hits, 5 runs. You take that out, 9 hits across 18 innings, right? They only walked 3 times. They struck out 22 in the first 2 games of the series, and that was against Frankie Montas, not a super huge strikeout guy we think about there. And even with the big explosion yesterday, they batted 212 in that series. And so they had 4 extra base hits among their 21 hits. So even when they were getting it done, they weren't getting it done with a lot of powers, a lot of singles and things like that. I feel like this is probably the best the Braves defense has been since the beginning of the season when you had everybody in place. Urshela's
Agreed.
been really good at third. I do think Merrifield's better than Ozzie defensively at second, but that ship has sailed, whatever. We can talk about Ozzy needing to kick out of the 2 spot to 5. That's something we can definitely discuss. Yeah, I'm not really afraid of this Mets team right now. Francisco Lindor is not healthy. He's talked about he's not going to be healthy the rest of the year with this back issue. And he did return to the lineup over the weekend. He played shortstop once, he DH'd twice. He finished 4 for 12, one homer on Sunday. The rest of them were all singles. He struck out 3 times. He did will them to victory yesterday. Again, he had the home run, he stole 2 bases. Did more than I thought he would do with the back injury, but when you watch him, he's clearly not healthy. And the downside of this being banged is, one, you didn't get Sale and Fried for this series, but then two, you also you gave him more time to get back on the field. I still think a diminished Francisco Lindor is probably better than whatever else they could have rolled out. Jose Iglesias, Luis Angel Acuna, whatever it could have been. But either way, I don't love that. But I still think Atlanta should be the favorite in game one, even when you look at who they have going, because they have Tyler Megill, and we'll break that down after the break. Am I crazy here for thinking that like Atlanta should win game one?
You keeps asking me if you're crazy, and I want to say yes because I know you, Lindsay. I know you are crazy, but the actual conversation of saying, "Are you crazy for these certain takes?" No, you're not. And the
Yeah.
reason behind it is because this team has looked very good over the past couple weeks. Their offense has figured it out. Yesterday wasn't the best offensive performance, but it wasn't the same offensive woes that we've seen in the past. This isn't your old Braves of 2 weeks ago, if you will. They suffered with runners in scoring position, as you mentioned, 1 for 9. They left 9 on base. They had some base running blunders yesterday that impacted some of those
Orlando
issues.
Arcia trying to, what are you
And the
doing, man?
Soler to home wasn't good either. So there was two base running blunders of with runners in scoring position, both of them involving third base, that could have changed the entire aspect, the entire landscape of that game yesterday. And that didn't happen. So I'm not too concerned about the offensive, and I'm going to put this one in quotations today, woes of yesterday, because I'm more optimistic on what we've seen over the weekend and over last week until then. So I guess I'm just not too worried, and I think I have a lot of confidence in them taking game one in the doubleheader today.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into a break. When we come back, we'll talk about who Atlanta's going to face in game one and their pitching plan for both this and the wild card. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay, Crosby, Christian, Rauh. Again, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Crosby Baseball. He's at Christian S. Rauh, Raua. And our writing, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack. It is completely free, so go sign up. Okay, I think one of the advantages of us waiting for this morning to record versus everybody else dropping their shows last night is we got the reporting. Buster Olney dropped this a little while ago. The Met starter today is going to be Tyler Megill. He was recalled from AAA on August 30th. He made some changes to his sinker specifically and since he came back, he has been pretty effective. He has 5 starts, a 178 ERA. The team is 5-0 in those games. He is 2-0. Has allowed 6 runs, 5 earned, 8 walks to 28 strikeouts in 25 and a third innings. I don't necessarily think you should be as scared of him as you normally would be scared of a guy with a 178 ERA, because I want to walk you through the 5 teams that he's played since then. Chicago White Sox, 5 and a third, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. You struck out 6 White Sox. Congratulations. They are statistically the worst team in modern baseball history. Way to go there. He plays Boston, 4 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Okay, 81 and 81. Boston was not that great. You didn't even make it 5 innings. Toronto Blue Jays on the road on September 9th. 6 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. Quality start. That is legitimately a good outing. That was good. Yes, the Blue Jays are bad. That was a good outing. Washington, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, not earned. It was because of an error. 2 walks to 4 strikeouts. You see the strikeout number start to come back a little bit when he faces what I think is a promising and talented team that got into a hole early before they called their youngsters up. Last start against Philly, a legitimately good offense who was not playing for anything at this point. I believe they had already clinched at that point. 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks to 6 strikeouts. I think that the numbers for Tyler Miguel, again, 187 batting average allowed, 1.78 ERA. I think some of that is clouded by 3 or 4 below average opponents, including one is the worst team in baseball, and then a Philly team that did not matter. Atlanta has seen Tyler Miguel. Atlanta's one of the reasons why Atlanta's the reason why he got kicked out of the rotation. He faced them on July 27th, his last start before being sent down. 6 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks to 4 strikeouts. He gave up 3 homers in that game. Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Eddie Rosario. I think that this team that he is now facing is much better than the team that beat him over the summer. Jared Kelenic was the starting center fielder. He went 0 for 5. He hasn't started in, 2 weeks? Eddie Rosario was in left. He's no longer on the team. Adam Duvall was the starter in right. Adam Duvall has barely seen the field in a month. Nacho Alvarez was playing second. He is back in the minors. He also went 0 for 3 with a strikeout in that game. I would argue, fun fact, Spencer Schwellenbach started that game too, so they faced each other. I think that this is an Atlanta team that has shown they can be successful against him, and both the hitters on the team, Matt Olson is one of those guys, are hotter than they were back over the summer, and a lot of your new replacements. I'll take Ramon Laureano over Eddie Rosario. I'll take Jorge Soler over Adam Duvall. I'll take Michael Harris over Jared Kelenic. I think every position is better with the exception of Gio Urshela over Austin Riley at third base. So I'm not worried about game 1. I think you can win game 1.
When you're looking at Peterson, you said he adjusted his slider or sinker. What one was it?
Sinker.
Okay. If you look at his last
Tyler Miguel,
apologies. But when you look at his last start against the Phillies, he still only threw that sinker 13 times, which was 16% of his outing. And he only got 1 whiff out of it. Most of his whiffs, most of his percentage on his throws are still from the fastball. So you still have to focus on that fastball. He is a good fastball pitcher. He does have a good fastball. He got 13 whiffs in that game. 11 came from the fastball. It was a 28 CSW percentage. So even though he does show some improvements, 28 CSW, that's a little above average. That's not all-star excitement. That's not something like they can't hit. This is something that the Braves will be just fine doing. I'm looking forward to seeing this offense step back from yesterday and blow him out of the water. I think that's what we're going to see. I'm really excited to see this. And honestly, if you have a guy that was sitting 55% on fastballs in his last start, you can assume he's going to probably sit around that again. Let guys like Marcell Ozuna, Jorge Soler, who love fastballs, just wait and sit on those. Just don't worry about the off-speed pitches in that first game and see what happens.
And if you're going 4-seam heavy here on this game, guess what? 3 of Atlanta's 5 best hitters against 4-seam fastballs this year weren't in that game. Jorge Soler has been the best Braves hitter against 4-seam fastballs. Ramon Laureano was 3rd. Michael Harris is 5th. Those 3 guys did not play in that matchup. But guys that did play in that matchup, Austin Riley, 2nd worst on the team against 4-seam fastballs this year. Nacho Alvarez, Adam Duvall, all negative. Eddie Rosario, negative. All negative. Jared Kelenic, negative. All negative against 4-seam fastballs. If he does rely on the 4-seamer, great. You have a lot guys who are a lot better at hitting 4-seamers now than when you face him over the summer. And if he goes with that sinker, guess what? Same situation. Michael Harris had struggled against those this year. He's been better as of late. Ramon Laureano is also very good against 4-seamers. Matt Olson's positive against 4-seamers. Gio Urshela is positive against 4-seamers. Positive against sinkers. Sorry. Michael Harris is really the concern there. Again, he's not been great against them this season, but he has been better as of late. So I like Atlanta's chances in game 1. I got an email from a sports book. Not going to name them because they're not giving us money for this. They have the Braves favored in game 1, minus 150. The Mets are plus 138. I feel confident here. And then when you go to game 2, and I'm going to do this assuming Atlanta wins game 1. A lot of people are saying, hey, you're just going to punt game 2. You're not going to try because you're already in and you want to save your arms. But I think there is an avenue towards beating the Mets in game 2 and keeping them out of the postseason completely without necessarily having to use your best arms. Because if you look at the pitching plan, here's the thing. You don't get an extra player for the doubleheader. That's a thing a lot of people got wrong. I, at one point in time, had said this. I have been wrong on that as well. You don't get an extra player in the month of September because the rosters have already expanded. But you can option anybody with options down and get a fresh body in their place because it doesn't matter. They can still make the wild card roster. You can option them down after game 1, and then you can still take them with you to San Diego. Dylan Lee has options. Daisabel Hernandez has options. Spencer Schwellenbach has options. You can start him today. You can option him to the minors and replace him with a Bryce Elder. Replace him with an Ian Anderson. You can put somebody else in his place. Bryce Elder has never lost to the Mets. Okay? He went 5 1/3 against them this year. He had an awful year this year, right? 5 1/3, 7 hits, 2 runs, no walks to 6 strikeouts. He started against them twice last year, 11 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 11 strikeouts. I know we aren't fans of Bryce Elder right now, but Bryce Elder is a guy that is competing for not only a rotation spot, but I would argue to not get traded over the offseason. I think Bryce Elder is potentially on the chopping block to get traded over the offseason. And I think he's going to be motivated to go out there and do well. His last stretch in Gwinnett, since we optioned him down, he had an ERA of just around 3, 37 strikeouts in 42 innings, including some dominant outings. He went 8 1/3 with 1 run allowed against Louisville. He went 6 innings with 1 run allowed against Norfolk. That is the Baltimore Orioles. That is a good team. He's put up some really good. He had an 11 strikeout game in 6 innings against Nashville. He's put up some really good outings. I think, one, trying to actually win game 2 without using your high leverage arms. Okay. I'm not saying do that, but actually winning game 2, making the Mets blow Severino, who was a guy that struggled against Atlanta last time he was out. His last start, 4 innings, 4 runs on 7 hits in a loss, and a 5-1 loss. I legitimately think Atlanta can win game 1 behind Schwellenbach, and then they can use Bryce Elder, and I think they can win game 2.
And that would be crazy. And if that happens, I hope the Braves admin on social media plays the full SpongeBob
Sal
song.
Licata, bring it on, Sal.
Oh, I'm good with that too. Yeah, but I hope the Braves admin plays the full SpongeBob song of "Sweet Sweet Victory," knowing that they knock the Mets out of the postseason if that happens, because that would be pretty nice. Let's be fair. You get to move to the playoffs, and you get to ensure that the Mets stay home. But is there a more perfect world, Lindsay? Is there a more perfect world if that happens? Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to that you mentioned about the fastballs and how McGill throws them and how a guy like Laureano does really good with those. He had 3 strikeouts yesterday. It sounds he is just poised and ready to go for a huge game.
Ramon Laureano revenge game.
This is my pick. If I was betting for props or putting any kind of props in, I'm putting in for Laureano to hit a home run today.
There we go. Okay. All right. So we will be back tomorrow morning, win or lose, postseason or not, to talk about what happened today, to talk about this postseason matchup, what you're going to face. Again, assuming you're in the postseason, which it feels like you're going to. Again, you just have to win one game and you're in. In the meantime, we're going to have takeaways from today's games, bravestoday.com. Follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page as well. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. He's on Twitter at Christian S. Rauh, R-A-U-H. We're both going to be tweeting about these games all day. Again, if you're listening on audio, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell when we drop a new episode. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.